brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking host, the good old boys. Now it's sippin' time.
Yes, it's sippin' time again. Hello and welcome to this Sips episode where everything good in life is worth discussing. As always, we are the best thing on at 2 a.m. This is a 1-hour show that's allegedly entertaining for upwards of almost 20 minutes on a good day.
Oh, no, we made it to 21 once.
Your dreams. We are banned in 6 cities, 7 states, and we have been branded an enemy of the state of North Korea. So Rocket Man doesn't like us.
Take that, Rocket Man.
Yeah, son of a... He's probably sitting there with Dennis Rodman listening to that show right now, probably drinking better whiskey than we can afford. So, from the stories I've heard, yeah, exactly. So this is Made Man Bob, and joining me today, our Made Man Brent.
Thanks. I like the addition of the little creek run through the basement here.
Well, I've got to have some fresh water for when the Rocket Man starts shooting at us. Made Man Maury.
Good morning, Bob. I do love the decor that you've done in honor of Booker.
Hey, I try. I'm building a barrel fort. And good old boy Justin.
Good morning, Bob. It's good planning that your safe room's also your bourbon room.
Well, I try and keep all the things important to me in one room. I got my wife, my kids, my guns, and my liquor all in the same place. So
that would be his 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, with the swinging light bulb. Yeah, exactly. I still live with Mom. So Brent, Maury, and myself are with the Bourbon Mafia. The Bourbon Mafia is a nonprofit group composed of bourbon enthusiasts and industry professionals. With representation in 8 states, our members combine a love of bourbon with a passion for charitable work. The group uses their love of our native spirit to raise money for local and national charities through rare bottle auctions and other themed events. Check us out on Facebook at The Bourbon Mafia or at thebourbonmafia.org. This episode is sponsored by Flaviar. Flaviar is an online whiskey club for the explorer at heart. All members of Flaviar get quarterly tasting boxes, free shipping on full-size bottles and boxes, invitations to tasting events, and access to rare and vintage finds. For more information, go to flaviar.com. That's FLAVIAR.com. You didn't think I could spell that, did you?
I didn't think you could.
Nope.
I've been practicing.
Against it.
This show is also
How many times
sponsored.
did it take you to learn to spell that?
I started last week. This show is also sponsored in part by Cooper's Fine Spirits in Cooper City, Florida, home of the Enomatic machine, serving great wines, whiskeys, and other spirits by the glass. You can find them at www.finespirits.net, and that's the only one I'm going to do for Harm because he always hates it when I do his website because he says it needs work, and he's not here, so I don't care.
I bet you can't find it there.
Probably not.
Oh, he's never online. How would he possibly have time to update the website?
Yeah, that's for sure. Our sip segments are all about wine, distilled spirits, tea, and coffee, and today's show is a distiller's takeover show featuring products from the Jim Beam Distillery. We're going to cover some background on the brand as well as on the individual products we'll be tasting. We're going to be tasting the Beam Small Batch Collection today. Our samples were graciously provided to us by Kiara Livia from Beam's Small Batch team. So thank you very, very much. Here's the short list of what we're going to be tasting today. We're going to be tasting Knob Creek Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Bob, is there ever a long list of what we're going to be tasting?
Not when you're around.
Oh, okay. It just always seems to be the short list.
Yeah, dang mooch. Knob Creek Rye, Basil Hayden's Bourbon, Basil Hayden's Rye, Baker's Bourbon, and Booker's Bourbon Tommy's Batch. So why don't we have Brent give us a little bit of history about the Beam Small Batch Collection?
Thanks, Bob. The Jim Beam Distillery is well known to anyone who is a fan of whiskey, being the largest bourbon producers in the world and tracing its roots back to 1795. The Small Batch Collection was the creation of Booker No.
God bless Booker.
Oh, yes. Thank gosh.
I met him once. I feel like I've touched God.
Yeah. He's the grandson of Jim Beam and a 6th-generation master distiller. Booker began bottling an uncut, unfiltered, Small batch bourbon as a Christmas gift for his friends and family.
Still waiting for mine.
Yeah.
For some reason, it has yet to arrive.
I think we have now all become his friends and family. You know, this was bourbon the way Booker liked it, and word got around. In 1988, this became Booker's Bourbon, the first expression of the small batch collection. A super premium small batch bourbon was a pretty new concept at the time, but Booker became a success, and as a result, in 1992, Jim Beam added Baker's, Basil, Hayden, and Knob Creek bourbons, and the Beam small batch collection was born. And that's some information in the history of the Beam small batch collection. Now we'll have Maury tell you about our SIPS ratings in his favorite hillbilly voice.
I swear to God, if you use my voice, I will crawl across this table and beat you with a stick.
Well, we ought to have Bob do it just because he is a hillbilly and he doesn't have to do anything. I'm not very good at voices and impressions, so.
I like them there French fried potatoes. Them things are pretty good.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, SIPS ratings. 1 sip. Give me a glass of water to wash out my mouth.
That was so sad.
I heard banjos after that one.
Paddle faster, yeah.
2 sips. Nice. What else do you have?
Well, isn't that nice?
Sound like a pirate.
Good job, Tex.
3 sips. Interesting. What was that again?
Interesting.
4 sips. Let's keep this a secret to ourselves. Pour me another. 5 sips. Oh my. I was wondering where anything could be this good. Bobby Joe.
Oh my goodness.
My people are spinning in their grave as we speak. Good Lord.
Paddle faster.
He's from the South. He's from South Jersey. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Okay.
How'd you know I'm from South Jersey?
Well, I can smell it on you.
You knew what exit you were at.
Yeah, I can tell. It's the one
I'm
right.
from Jersey. You from Jersey?
Hey, I'm from Jersey. Yeah.
What exit are you from?
73, past the toxic waste dump. Yeah, I know what that's at. Yeah. Okay. Good Lord. All right, let's stop the shenanigans. And I swear, you guys are just. You
guys are dumber than a box of hair.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Why don't we go to our first one, and we're going to have Justin tell us about it.
Our first product is Knob Creek Bourbon, 50% alcohol by volume, and it's about 9 years old. This expression was named after Abraham Lincoln's boyhood home in Kentucky. Bottled at 100 proof, Jim Beam says it was created to represent a style of whiskey that existed before mass production and embodies the look, feel, and taste of the pre-prohibition bourbon, or as we like to call it, pre-pro. Mash bill is 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley.
So you think?
Yeah, it's a guess. They're very secretive. Any mash bills that we discussed today are educated guesses by. I basically looked around, got all the information I could get, and came up with what people had a consensus on, but they're one of the, some distillers will, they'll let you sit there and, they'll give you exact dimensions, we're using this. It came from here. We're using exactly this much. Others, not so much. And Beam is not one that's real forthcoming with their mash bills, but I think it's an educated guess, but I think it's close.
I think they're afraid we're going to make it at home in the basement.
Yeah. Have you seen the size of the fermenters in that place? I could drop my house in one of those. It's not happening.
Not with the small batch collection. They're quite small. Half a house.
Hence the name small batch.
Half a house.
All right. What'd you think, Justin?
So it had a pretty sweet caramel nose on it, and that followed through on the palate where I got more caramel and oak. And there was spice, but there wasn't a lot of heat on it in the back end. And it's a solid bourbon. I gave it 3 sips.
Interesting.
All right. Well, what'd you think, Brent?
Yeah, and this has got a nice copper color. I get a little on the nose. I get some pepper, leather, a little bit of vanilla. And then same thing on the palate. I get some pepper, leather, tobacco, vanilla. It's, it's a nice, got a nice medium finish to this. It's got a nice mouth feel. There's nice pleasant bourbon. There's nothing wrong with this. I give it 3 sips.
All right.
Interesting.
And Maury, what'd you think?
I like the color. It's got a beautiful deep amber color. Nose is classic bourbon, all the usual things, vanilla, caramel. I thought it was very nice on the palate. It was luscious. It was mouth coating. It had some nice viscosity to it. I thought the finish was medium bordering on long. It really just seemed to kind of go on for me with the finish. I think it's an excellent, well-made bourbon. I think for the money, there's hardly anything better out there at this price point. I think it's a staple. It belongs in every bourbon collection. You can't go wrong with Knob Creek. And with that, I give it a solid 4 sips.
Oh, hold on. Wrong button.
That's classified.
Wasn't sure where he was going with that. Okay.
I like to keep you guessing, Bob.
Yeah, I can't. I really can't add much more to it. I mean, it's always a good pour. It is a classic Beam style bourbon. It's got that Beam nose to it. It's got that Beam palate to it. Tobacco, leather. It's got the vanilla and the floral notes on the nose that I pick up. Extremely well made. I know they sell quite a bit of this. I know it's real popular, but it used to have I think it used to be a 9-year age statement.
Yeah.
Who can keep up with them these days? It's not on there anymore, but it's not on hardly anybody anymore. So you can't blame them for that. But solid. Give it a 4.
That's classified.
And we'll be back.
Rolling clouds and crashing surf, iridescent dunes reflecting by the light of a rising, glowing moon. Seashore mesmerizing, night breeze hypnotizing. We've come across these back roads none too soon. Look to the left, to the right. Keep your eyes on the road, my darling. Wondering if we're only passing through. Open roads and open windows. My hand is yours forever, sweet love.
And we're back, and we are talking about products from the Jim Beam Company from the Beam Small Batch Collection. We had just talked about the Knob Creek bourbon, so we're going to go on to our next expression. Why don't you tell us, what are you drinking?
I am drinking the Knob Creek Rye. This is a 50% ABV, so it's 100 proof. This was launched 1992, before the craft and super premiums didn't exist. So
I don't think it was 92. I think the collection was 92.
that was the regular Knob Creek,
the
not
Knob
the
Creek
Rye.
Rye is much more recent than that.
What's that?
I think
it was more recent.
No, maybe that. Well, so the Knob Creek, the name itself comes from a little creek that ran by Abraham Lincoln's childhood home.
Yep.
This is a nice. It's got a retail price around $40.
You go to Kentucky, you can go see the log cabin that is the quote representation of his childhood home. It's not his home. And it's not even the same cabin. It's
nice.
The whole thing is silly, but it's whatever. It's something for the tourists.
Yeah, this has got a nice copper color. You get pepper and vanilla on the nose. On the palate, I get some clove, pepper, allspice, leather, tobacco, vanilla, oak. There's a lot of flavors, a lot of layers to this. On the
you
palate
obviously have a wonderful economy with words. I look forward to your next syllable with great eagerness.
Man, that's more words than I've seen come out of him ever.
Yeah, great mouthfeel then. It's got a great mouthfeel. It warms your entire mouth. It's got a nice like cooking spice that just warms your palate and stuff. Big, full signature flavor. You know, I really like this. This is 4 sips.
All right.
Can't go wrong.
That's classified.
Justin, what do you think?
Well, you will not miss the rye on this one. It's very prominent on the nose. And I was comparing it to Old Overholt, which is also owned by Beam. And it's a lot simpler than Old Overholt, but it's got a nice flavor to it. I give this one 2 sips. Almost 3.
Well, isn't that nice?
I think he put too much water in it. If he thinks Overholt's got more complexity than this, I think we need to have him checked out.
Yeah.
Maury, what you think?
I like this quite a lot. I think they did a beautiful job with this. This again, Knob Creek started as a single product of the Knob Creek bourbon and now has expanded to a handful of products. Well, this is the only other one we'll be reviewing today is the rye. I think it's beautifully made. It's got a beautiful deep amber to coppery color. It's definitely a little bit darker than the bourbon for whatever reason. Nose has definitely got rye on the rye notes on the nose. And I like what the other guys have said. I think the palate's got a nice oily, viscous mouthfeel. It's really pleasant.
Yeah, it's very mouth coating.
And for me, I felt it had a lot of spice on the finish and a really long finish. I think it really is interesting. We estimate and guesstimate that the rye content in the mash bill is perhaps not much more than 51%. And yet this is a good example of the fact that the exact percentage of rye doesn't necessarily dictate the rye character. And we'll see in another expression, much more feminine style. This is a masculine rye. It's a classic rye. It makes great cocktails. And again, it's not 95 or 100% rye, but a relatively modest amount by comparison to the other ryes on the market. Yet the rye notes come through both on the nose and on the palate. Again, very, very well made for the price. There's hardly anything that compares that you can get in this price range with this high quality. It's a great rye. And, again, I think it belongs in every bar and everybody's, whiskey collection. It makes fantastic, rye-based cocktails like, Manhattans and Old Fashions. And I give it a solid 4 sips.
All right.
That's classified.
I can't really add a lot to that. I do think that it's a lower rye mash bill. I don't think it's, 70, 75. I think it's closer to the 50s or something. And the reason I think that is it's a classic rye, but it's not, the spice isn't overpowering. And that rye note that you get, that putty nose, isn't nearly as strong as in, say, what's the one that we had from Holland? Millstone, 100% rye. When you smell that, that's 100% rye because the nose just jumps out at you. You can smell it. This is a rye, but it's not overpowering. It's extremely well put together.
But it's a masculine rye.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a masculine style of rye. It's not, it's not laid back. It's not real quiet, but it's not, a brick in the face either. And like Maury said, it's got a really good mouthfeel to it. Very coating, got some really good viscosity to it. Hold on. Yeah, I can't really add much more to that. I'd give it a solid 4.
That's classified.
All right. Well, we're up to our next one, which is the Basil Hayden bourbon. So that's 40% ABV, non-age statement, and again, a guesstimate that we've been able to glean off of the interweb is the mash bill is about 63 corn, 27 rye, 10% malted barley. Only Beam knows for sure. Basil Hayden's bourbon is named after Basil Hayden Sr. He was a Maryland Catholic that led a group of 25 Catholic families from Maryland into what is now Nelson County, Kentucky, near Bardstown, in 1785. And there, Hayden donated the land for the first Catholic church west of the Alleghenies and the first Catholic church in what is now the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Hayden was also a distiller. It seems like everybody that moved west was also a distiller. He was a distiller, he manufactured everything on planet Earth. He built guns, he owned land, and who knows. And he is also known for his high rye bourbons. And Hayden's grandson, Raymond B. Hayden, who was also a distiller, was the creator of the Old Granddad label. And if you look at the Old Granddad label, there's a picture of a very distinguished looking guy at the very top of it, and that is Basil Hayden. So why don't we get to trying this a little bit? You know, I get a lot of floral notes. I get some apple. I get a little bit of fruit on this, and some brown sugar, and just a hint of sweet tea. Just very, very little bit in the back. And on the palate, you know, it's spicy, but it's a creamy spice. It's not a aggressive kind of spice. I get some honey. I get some vanilla on this. It's got a decent finish. I'd say, a medium finish for something of such a low proof. It's got a fairly decent finish. I really wish they would release this out at about 90.
It'd be nice.
I think a higher proof would be, we're all proof junkies around this table anyway. So we're freaks. But extremely well made bourbon. Give it a solid 3.
Interesting.
Brent, what'd you think?
I enjoy this. This is nice copper color. Like you said, in the nose, you get some traditional bourbon notes to it and stuff. On the palate, I get pepper, vanilla, oak, a little bit of some citrus notes. I didn't really pick up on the honey, but that's okay. It was this has got a beautiful mouthfeel to it. And the one thing that, because it's a lower proof, I really don't think this gets the recognition that it deserves.
Yeah.
I just think.
Well, there are people out there who are just vehement in, that's the worst of the one. I don't like that one, because they are proof junkies. And that's the thing. We all are bad about that. I know I'm bad about that. So I'm extra careful about not letting that sway me.
Right. That's why I said I don't think it gives the recognition that it deserves. It's, it's got a great mouthfeel to it, and it is very pleasant. And this is a nice long sipper. You could sip this all day, all night, and without a problem and stuff. And I enjoyed it a lot. But it's this. I would have liked this. I would like it to kick it up a notch. I mean, I think that's why they have bookers, which and bakers that kind of do that. So I think, but this is a solid 3 sips.
Interesting.
Yeah, and echoing that. What you said, Brent, I would agree, and I think it's got a place. I think it's got a niche. I think if you kicked it up a couple notches, it would approach some of the other products. And this to me
is there for a reason.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's there for a reason. It's beautifully crafted. It's more feminine in its style. It's definitely what I would consider an entry-level bourbon. It's great for people that are relatively new to drinking bourbon. It's not too hot. It's right down the middle. I think you start kicking up the proof, although we would really like it because we're proof junkies. I think it starts to take it out of that category and that niche. I think it serves a great purpose. I disagree with you a little bit, Brent, on the color. I think to me it's a lot lighter than the others. It's much more light gold to me and not as coppery. If you compare the glasses, the first 2 expressions of the Knob Creek were much more coppery and deep amber, and this is, to me, quite a bit lighter. I definitely get lots of fruit and floral on the nose. It's like a fruit bowl on the nose. There's just lots of interesting layers of fruit. On the palate, I found it to be light. It's got vanilla. It's got honey. It's got a lot of classic bourbon flavors. There's really nothing offensive about it. I wouldn't, until I looked at the mash bill, have picked it as a high rye bourbon, because to me it drinks like a soft bourbon. It drinks more like a wheater than a high rye bourbon. And I agree with Bob. I think it's got a medium finish. Very well made. I know lots and lots of ladies who really like this bourbon. I love the packaging. I think it's the most unique packaging on the bottle that I've seen of any other bourbon. Nothing else even comes close. It's a great product. I think again it's got a place in just about everybody's bourbon collection. I give it a solid 3 sips.
All right.
Interesting.
Justin?
So I got basically the same tasting notes as Bob, except I did get some wood on the nose. I thought it was.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thought it was pretty complex on the palate. I thought the finish was medium. I agree with Maury that it would be a good bourbon to introduce to someone who was new to drinking any strong spirits. But it just didn't have the oomph to get me to 3 sips, but I gave it a strong 2 sips.
Well, isn't that nice?
All right. All right, Maury, you want to do the next one?
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you. So our next product is the Basil Hayden's Rye Whiskey. This also comes in at 40% ABV. It's a non-age statement product. This is the absolute newest expression in the small batch collection. Again, the collection once started with just 4 labels. It's now grown to quite a few. And this is the Basil Hayden's Rye Whiskey. Beam created this expression through the addition of a unique rebarreled rye. The rebarreled rye begins as a 4-year-old traditional rye whiskey, which is then dumped out and further aged an additional 7 years in newly charred quarter cask oak barrels. This is then blended with traditional Kentucky straight rye whiskey to create the Basil Hayden's Rye Whiskey. So that's something that prior to today I didn't really know. You'd expect, based on that description, that this should be a powerhouse, a kick in the teeth rye. It's basically 11 years old, 4 plus 7. It's going in brand new small barrels.
Math. Whew. Look at him.
Small quarter cask barrels. I mean,
these go to 11.
Mm-hmm.
You'd expect quite a lot from it, but actually it's quite different and it's quite unique. The color is amber. The nose is really complex and very interesting. There's a lot of floral notes. It's like smelling a perfume bottle. It's the most floral and feminine rye I've ever tasted. It's definitely light on the palate, feminine, ethereal, floral, complex. The finish seems to go on and on. It's a stark contrast to the masculine Knob Creek rye. It's got a nice mouthfeel, but isn't really particularly striking in terms of mouthfeel. I just find it to be one of the most unique ryes I've ever had. It's definitely different than just about anything else you'll try. Again, I think it definitely shows its familial roots in the Basil Hayden lineage and linking itself back to the feminine style in the bourbon. This, I think, as far as rye goes, is even more feminine. I think it's really interesting, really well made, and I like it a lot. Give it 4 sips.
All right.
That's classified.
Brent, what'd you think?
Well, this has got a nice medium copper color to it. I did get a little bit of the floral notes on the nose and some pepper and on the palate. It's a nice mouthfeel, but you got pepper, clove, cinnamon, tobacco, vanilla, and the one thing I'm missing with this is because it's only the 80 proof. It doesn't have that rye punch that I really like to have in a rye. That you're expecting in a rye.
And that's the thing that's on purpose.
Yeah, but it is on purpose. But when you're thinking 11-year rye, you're expecting this full-bodied flavor, and it's not a full body.
Yeah, it doesn't promise that.
It's right. It's not that. It is the lighter side. It's just like the Basil Hayden's on the bourbon. It's the lighter delicate side of the bourbon. This is the lighter side of the rye, and it doesn't have the punch that that a lot of people are looking for, and that bold flavor that a lot of people look for in a rye. But there's nothing offensive about it or anything, but I'm just going to give it 3 sips.
All right.
Interesting.
I really like this one. Can really taste the grain and the rye on this one. I get some chewing gum notes to it, which are really pleasant. And I get the spice that rye brings, but it doesn't bring the heat. And because of its balance, I gave it 3 sips. But it was pretty decent.
Interesting.
And I think the lower proof contributes to that. Less heat, less punch, less everything. But I think that's where they intended to place it, as a sort of a gateway or entry level rye.
It's good to give people options.
Right.
It's got a nice mouthfeel and everything. It's just not that bold rye flavor that you're used to when you have a rye. So, a gateway rye, when you say that gateway rye, that really is what you think of when you're doing this. And if you're already used to rye, it's like, well, I don't need a gateway rye. And so I think that's why this is underappreciated.
Well, I think it's just
us.
It's a different type of rye. It's, you can't open, if you have no idea and nobody's told you, you're going to open it, you're going to be looking for, your standard, like a Knob Creek rye to come out of that bottle. And that's not what it is. They did this on purpose. This is what they were looking to do. It's a much more delicate, it's a much more feminine approach. It's the Bordeaux, it's the Burgundy to Bordeaux. It's the lighter, it's the more nuanced, it's the more complex. Maury and I got the chance to try this at the Sarasota Whiskey Obsession when it first hit. It had not actually hit Florida yet. They had some bottles at the one event the first night there, and they were sharing it with us. And I was taken aback because, again, I was expecting, well, your typical rye. And as soon as I got over that, I thought, wow, this is lovely. I mean, it's extremely well put together. It's like spice cookies and brown sugar, sweet dried red fruit, and, spices on the back end on this. It's not, that front end spice that you get on a typical rye. Extremely well made. I am curious if they knocked it up, 5 or 10 points on the alcohol, if it would make that much of a difference. I don't think it would. I don't think it has anything to do with the proof. I think that's the way this was made. This was made as a softer rye. Right. And I don't think the alcohol content one way or the other is going to make a difference. Like I would be interested to try a Basil Hayden regular at a higher proof, just out of curiosity. But I don't think it would make a difference on this rye. I think it's extremely well done, and I was quite taken with it when we tried it in Sarasota. I give it a solid 4.
Yeah, I went out and bought a bottle right after we tried it in Sarasota as soon as it hit the market.
Not just the destination, but baby, the whole elation of riding down this lover's avenue. Slow as the willow blows, or as fast as the whirlwind grows, we glide beneath the stars in cobalt blue. Look to the left, to the right, keep your eyes on the road, my darling, wondering if we're only passing through. Open roads and open windows, my hand is yours forever, sweet love. Our eyes ahead on these back roads with a view.
Hey, we're back, and we're talking about the small batch collection from Jim Beam. We just finished talking about the Basil Hayden Rye. And we are up to our next expression, and I believe Justin's going to tell us a little bit about this one.
Our next product is Baker's Bourbon, 53.50% alcohol by volume. It's 7 years old. Its mash bill is allegedly 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. This expression of the small batch collection is the creation of and named after Baker Beam, the great-grandnephew of Jim Beam. This one, the colors on the lighter side of like a light brown, dark orange. I got a little bit of heat on the nose, but as I drink it, got some heat on the palate too, and its finish, the first time I tried it, it had a short finish, and then when I tried it right after that, I got a long finish. So it's a pretty interesting bourbon, and I've had this same bourbon before, and we had a steak dinner, and then today we had different food, and it tasted totally different than it did the other day. I gave it 3 sips.
All right. Brent, what'd you think?
Okay, well, yeah, this one does have a little bit darker color to it. Enjoy that. The one thing I want to say about this one that I got, pepper explosion. It's just I got that pepper and spice explosion. It just explodes into your mouth, you know, and so you don't even realize it. But then with your finish, you have all that pepper flavor up front, and you don't even. It takes a little while, and then the finish just kind of lingers, and it just mellows out, and it warms down, and it gives you a nice, long, warm, peppery feeling. So I really enjoyed that. That was something that, this is the Baker's, I think, is underappreciated, because everybody talks, when they talk about the Jim Beam collection, I think that everyone says Booker's, and I think people tend to overlook the Baker's. I just know we did a toast to him last month. Was a celebration of his birthday. That we did a toast to him and stuff. And I enjoy this. But again, pepper explosion in the mouth is what really really got me. But I enjoyed it, and I'm going to give this 4 sips.
All right. I'm a little slow today.
That's classified.
Today only?
Slow every day.
Yeah, today.
I want you to feel like you can tell me anything, okay?
Okay.
Don't be so dramatic. Good Lord.
All right. Well, let me give you my thoughts. I think that this is a little bit of an atypical bottle. There is going to be a little bit of variation from bottle to bottle. Hopefully not a lot. And obviously these whiskeys, even in a small batch, are blended to a consistent flavor profile. I've had Baker's many times. I agree with everything that Brent said. It's underappreciated, undermentioned, under everything. It's the one that people just don't talk about. Booker's, I agree. Knob Creek's gotten really popular because of all the line extensions. Basil Hayden's kind of has its niche. And Baker's always just kind of like the stepchild that no one talks about. I think the packaging's beautiful. I do want to add that all the packaging is nice. I love the fact that every one of them is in a different style bottle.
All clean.
A different shape
nice
bottle.
Clean
packaging. Yeah. This one just really has a rich, expensive feel to the packaging.
It's one of the few out there that still has an age statement on it, too.
It is a few. It's also coming in at 107 proof, which is
7 for 107.
7 for 107, 7 years old, Baker 777, Lucky 7. I think it's a well-made whiskey. I do agree with what Brent said about this bottle. This bottle is a pepper bomb, pepper explosion. For me, the finish is pepper. It's on the front of the palate, not in the back, not in the throat, but really up front. It's a long, peppery finish.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yes, it is my opinion. It is my opinion, Spicoli. It's got a beautiful...
Spicoli, it's the dude. What's wrong with you?
Amber color.
Dude.
And it's got a nice nose. I think it's a great whiskey. I think it's underappreciated. When I first started drinking the small batch collection, it was my go-to. And I used it to make quite a number of cocktails. It makes a really interesting...
he's made quite a number of cocktails.
It makes an interesting sidecar. Early on when this collection came out, they had like a little bit of
I want you to feel like you can tell me anything, okay?
I am Maury, and I have a drinking problem.
They had a little, almost like a club, and you'd get mailings and things like that. And occasionally they'd have little trinkets and doodads for the collection, and they'd often have recipes. And one of which was a take on a sidecar, which is traditionally made with cognac, and it was a Baker 7 sidecar. I still order that from on occasion to this day. It's a really interesting cocktail. But I've got little flasks and little trinkets and things with the small batch collection from those early days. I think they were emulating some of the other whiskey clubs and trying to develop a little bit of a cult following. And again, I think compared to the regular line, this line is really wonderfully done and well made. As for this bottle, Baker 7, I give it a solid 4 sips.
All right.
That's classified.
All right, so back to me now. Baker's is underappreciated. And I think it is passed over, because everybody, they think Booker's. It's a damn solid bourbon. It's a very good bourbon, and it's one that I have enjoyed on many an occasion. I think this batch is, what is this? batch B-9001. I think maybe this one is a little bit spicier than normal. I don't think it's that different than average, maybe just a slight bit more, but yeah, pepper. Yeah, I get a lot of oak on the nose. I get some walnuts. You can smell the tannins in that. You can tell that it's had a few years in the wood.
Yeah, you can definitely do the wood, but the pepper to me just exploded, for me. So
especially after
that's not like a bad thing. That's not,
that's a wonderful.
Right,
it's pretty cool.
Right.
No, we typically associate pepper though with high rye. This is not a high rye bourbon at all.
No, not at all.
This is a low rye bourbon,
and that's why it's surprising.
And normally, I remember it being much more traditional mainstream bourbon with less spice and more creme brulee, caramel toffee, and things like that. But like I said, this bottle's got a lot of spice to it.
Yeah,
so I'm sorry, Bob.
I like this one. It's extremely well put together. Again, like I said, you can taste the oak on it. It's not overpowering, but it's right where you want it to be. It's a good, solid, well-made bourbon. Yeah, I'd give it a solid 4.
That's classified.
All right, well, that brings us up to our last one for the day.
All right, Bob, thank you. Our last product is the Booker's Bourbon Tommy's batch. This is batch number 2017-01, clocking in at 64.25% ABV, and again, no age statement. We estimate the mash bill to be...
Oh, yeah, it is. 6 years, 4 months, and 6 days.
Sorry. I was just reading Bob's research. That's a very specific age statement. The mash bill is...
Hold on. 4 hours, 11 minutes, 2 seconds. It was done on a Tuesday. It was raining.
The mash bill is thought to be exactly the same as the Baker's, that being approximately 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. This particular batch of Booker's was named in honor of Tommy Kroom, who started his career at the Beam Distillery and worked closely alongside master distiller Booker No for decades, learning the ropes and learning precisely how Booker liked things done. They spent so much time together that Booker often joked that Tommy was like a second son to him. Tommy eventually worked his way up to become distillery manager at Beam's Claremont, Kentucky plant, and after Booker passed away, it was Tommy that helped Fred No ensure the distillery continued to run according to Booker's standards. After nearly 30 years in the business, Tommy celebrated his retirement in late 2016. So that's something new. Booker's used to just be Booker's, and it was only a couple of years ago, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, that they started naming the batches and creating several batches a year. And I'm not sure if that's a marketing ploy. It's all basically the same.
They always had the batches. They had the batch numbers, but but naming them is new.
16.
Yeah,
I think 2016.
I think it was 2016 when they started.
Yeah, now they've got names and little figures on the label associating with the.
Because when they did the round table batches, those you had to know the batch number to find those. They didn't actually put anything on it. Right. So yeah, they've done batch numbers.
And and now they added the names.
Yeah. Right.
So
I'm still waiting for the Brent's batch.
Yeah, Brent's batch is coming. Trust me.
This this product is just, it's amazing. It's a dark amber in color. It's got classic nose of creme brulee, classic bourbon flavors like vanilla, toffee, brown sugar, spice. It's got a viscous, thick mouth coating feel on the palate. It's got a finish that goes on and on. It's definitely not a bourbon for the faint of heart. It's a full-bodied, kick in the teeth bourbon. It's
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
That's exactly what I was thinking you'd say. It's certainly the highest proof of any offering we've had today.
It's quite pungent.
Oh yeah.
It's a formidable scent. It stings the nostrils.
Oh, it stings your nostrils.
Oh yeah. And as we've all become here, I think we evolved into this. I don't think people start out as barrel proof junkies, but we are no question at this table barrel proof junkies, and so it's hard not to just fall in love with this at cast strength or barrel proof. Their 25th anniversary edition of this whiskey is probably one of my all-time favorite bourbons. I know, Bob, your death row bourbon is George T. Stagg, but I would take the Booker's 25th anniversary and put it up to your George T. Stagg anytime.
the thing about Booker's, that's what got half the people I know who are into bourbon started.
That's
if
right.
not more than half. I mean, you find any freaks like us, more often than not, what's the one thing that really turned you, that really turned your head and went, wow, there's a lot more to this, that got you going out and seeking the new releases and looking for the labels you've never seen? What was the one that you tried that you can point to? And I honestly,
it wasn't the unicorn bourbon.
9 times out of 10, it's, I had this bottle of Booker's one time, so for all eternity, God bless Booker. He can go down as one of the guys responsible, honestly, for, the resurgence, just that additional flavor, that hugeness, that boldness, nobody had ever seen anything like that before.
People thought he was crazy when he came out with a super premium bourbon with a high price tag. And prior to that, as you know, Beam was coming out with all these ceramic decanters because they couldn't give the bourbon away. And
the two real pioneers, the guys who really went out and said, we're tired of being treated badly. We want to actually make a premium product and be treated that way. And that was Elmer T. Lee when he came up with Blanton's, and it was Booker No when he came up with Booker's. Right. And those two guys deserve all the credit in the world for, changing it. And Bill Samuels, to a great extent as well, marketing his product as a premium bourbon as well. But it was that attitude that these gentlemen took that turned the tide.
I would expand on what you said and say that for me, it was the small batch collection I actually received as a gift very early on in my bourbon, my love affair with bourbon, collection. It was a wooden case with one of each of these four bottles.
4 bottles in it. Yeah,
and
that was a nice.
That's how his collection of methamphetamine started. Somebody brought him a box, and they had one of each color.
Each color,
the blue
says,
one, the pink one.
I love colors.
And as much as I love the Bookers, I really think the whole collection really inspired me to become a bourbon junkie. And again, the collection was really all started by Booker, his namesake bourbon, and then an expansion of the line. Anyway, without any more ado, this is a 5 sips, no question.
Right. Oh my goodness!
Yes!
Can I go
We
home
interrupt
now?
this program to annoy you and make things generally irritating.
All right, Brent, what do you think?
Okay, here's my tasting notes. Why don't I drink more Bookers? Those are, that's pretty much my tasting notes for this. But earlier this year or last year, they had, there was a whole big rampage about, Booker's was raising its price from $59.99 to $99.99, and people went on a rampage and stuff. But this is one, if you had to pay $99.99, you could do it. You would do it. I mean, it's that good.
The only reason people bitched is because they didn't like a 50% price increase. But if it came out at $99, you'd still be paying it every day.
Well, and look at all the ones that are not age stated, are have less to it, less punch. They're 90 proof or 100 proof, and look at them, and they charge more. And I can see where they're, in these craft distilleries and stuff, and they're like, hey, if a craft distillery can do this, and people are going to pay that for something less, then why can't we do it for something that's on the best that we got? So,
hey, if you could get a George T. Stagg at retail, if you could get it at retail, it's twice the price.
Right. But I'm going to give this a solid 5 sips. That's what I'm going to do with it.
All right.
Oh my goodness.
Justin, what do you think?
Yes!
This whiskey was definitely made by people that love making bourbon for people that love drinking it. They definitely brought the heat. I got some graham crackers on it, and the finish is long. It hits the back. I gave it a solid 4 sips.
All right.
Justin doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, I'm not going to get long and windy on it because we're coming to the end of the show, but this is the bourbon that got me into it, and I always go back to it. And I've got 1,000 of these little boxes scattered around my warehouse full of various parts and screws and things. Solid 5. Absolutely. Always a 5 for me.
Oh my goodness.
Yes!
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and you can catch all of our episodes online as well as on SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, PRX, and Spreaker, our native media host. iTunes, Google Play, and our own Android app are the easiest ways to enjoy the show on your phone. Just search for Sip Suds Smokes on iTunes or in the Google Play Store. Be sure to tap subscribe, and the show's always going to be on your phone. We love your feedback, and you can reach us online at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our daily tasting notes flow out on Twitter every day at Sip Suds Smokes, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news. You'll also be able to interact with the thousands of other fans on those social media platforms. Do us a favor and take the time to rate this episode. If you're listening to us online, that's a big help, and we love to get your feedback as well. And I want to thank our co-host for coming and helping me. Thank you, Brent.
Hey, I finally understand this streamed thing. We're going to call that Bob's Creek. We're going to call it Bob Creek as it goes through the basement.
I was born in a small log cabin on that creek.
Yes.
Thank you, Maury.
Thank you, Bob. Brent, I think it would be better named the Little Yellow River.
Little Yellow River.
But with that, Bob,
I've been drinking for a while, man. Don't start talking about that.
I'm excited about the bourbon barrel stave fort, and I hope we can finish constructing it.
I tried for the pillow fort, but she made me put the pillows all back. And thank you, Justin.
Thank you so much, Bob.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today, and for Sip, Suds, and Smokes, this is Made Man Bob, and we thank you for joining us. And remember, life is too short to drink cheap whiskey.
No, it's not. We drink very fine whiskey, and it's not short for that.
Yeah, I know. You'll drink anything I put in front of you.
I had some Booker's soup with the H2O croutons. Pour me another bowl of soup, please.
Yeah, with water croutons. Yeah.
This has been a one-tan-hand production of Sip, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.